Cashing out, taking profits, seizing the opportunity. People call it many things, including the hodlers who call it having weak hands. It's up to you how to play this game called crypto. Your choice, your decision to cash out or hodl. And that hodl's true all the way up into this game called life. So are you ready to spin the wheel of life with your favorite crypto YouTuber? That's what I like to hear, because it's time for Chico Crypto. So friends, all the way back in July of 2019, I made a popular cash out video for this bull run. It was a simple concept. Past the old time high of 20K, I would begin cashing out my portfolio in 10% increments of the total of my portfolio on the way up to 100K with each 10K climb. Did I follow my own plan? Actually, I didn't. It took some time to reevaluate, but cashing out between 20K to 40K would have been a pretty dumb idea, especially with BTC above 40K again as of yesterday. It would have been smart to follow my plan from 40K to 60K, but even then I didn't cash out, except for paying my tax bill, which was a forced cash out, but that wasn't even near 10% of my portfolio. So now it's time to reevaluate. What will be the plan now? We have possibly, according to my previous TA, Tyler analysis, have made it out of the great bear trap of this bull cycle, which was spookily spot on. May 29th, this is what I said and kept repeating after. June 13th. 2021 is the end of the bear trap. We're going to retouch 30K or go slightly below. So let us begin with the cash out plan. A few days ago, I made this video about where I see the markets moving if we turn full on bullish again, titled 100K end of year. My prediction is higher. Let's hear what I had to say, as this is a great starting point for coming up with a cash out plan. Where you think the peak price will be and when? I'm sticking to the Chico guns. The top for this cycle will be between 100K to 200K by December 2021. That is and has been my prediction for a long time. But if I had to give you a specific number and day, how about right here, 150K by December 15th, 2021. That is my personal prediction based on my own feelings. I am not a technical analysis or a serious crypto trader who's on the charts 24/7. You should look to many sources of crypto information, not just Chico's Tyler analysis, and then come up with your own personal projections. So step number one, coming up with a winning cash out plan, have projections of where you think the asset will go. This allows you to set goals and milestones on the way up to that projection. But try and be realistic. I don't think 1 million per BTC is coming this bull run. So now that I have a number set, 150K, and even when, around December 15th, we can start making cash out milestones all the way up to the projected peak. So should I begin cashing out right now? 40K, the new beginning level. Well, if we are doing what I think is going to happen, and this is the end of the bear trap, that would mean cashing out at like the bottom. Heck no, 40K isn't happening. What about 50K? Well, cashing out then does seem to get really tastier, halfway to 100K, revisiting the fabled number. But I'm actually going to hodl on out for one more $10,000 level. The first time I plan to cash out is when we revisit 60K. This is a point of major resistance for BTC, as our last peak in April reached just above it while trying to break it and falling twice before and once after. So I'm planning my first cash out milestone to happen at 60K, and here I will cash out 10% of my least like altcoins, some of the not so good coins from the last cycle, because in the mania phase of a run, all tides are lifted, including the shat coins, so exit them first. But what am I going to cash into and why? I'm not going into that thing they call USD, a fiat currency. I'm going to cash out into blockchain-based stable coins. So you're going into Tether, USDT, isn't that right, Chico? Oh hell no, you gotta get the assets that are breaking away from that side of things. DeFi-based stablecoins like DAI and USDC and more. We will see why I said more, but DAI and USDC are the most time-tested, battle-tested, and liquid stablecoins out there, who are the most furthest integrated into the world of DeFi, which should be able to resist a major crash shock. So 90% of my portfolio is still hodled in crypto, but 10% of my least like altcoins are into DAI, USDC, or possibly another stable asset. I'm going to take that 10% stable assets and immediately start earning yield on it through DeFi, borrowing and lending platforms, Compound and Aave, Layer 2s, XDAI, Polygon, and the coming rollups. Yield farming off your stability. You can earn a better rate with stable DeFi assets than a bank can give you with fiat. So I'm sure some of you are like, give me an example of this, Chico. Well, that part of the process is ever changing. The yield from different platforms are changing all the time. Some having incentive programs offering higher yields, some not. But a good place to start is with LoanScan, which aggregates the average yield on stable assets and beyond across popular DeFi platforms. And the link for LoanScan is down below. After getting a good idea of the average rates from something like LoanScan, from here you can look into what the platforms are doing. Are any doing incentive programs to boost that APY or APR? So here's my example. Aave. We will take our stable assets to here to initially lend on the platform, on the V2 markets, which are on Ethereum Layer 1. As we can see, the best stable assets in terms of returns are DAI and Gemini Dollar, which both return a 2.35%. But then below, there is an APR for Aave, staked Aave to be exact. There is an extra reward for certain assets, and in terms of stablecoins, Gemini has the best returns, 2.35% plus an extra 4.01% for an actual 6.36 return. See, things can change. Even though I would like to go into DAI or USDC, Gemini is the one that is the best returns right now on Aave, Ethereum's Layer 1. But there is and will be major incentive programs coming to venture into Ethereum Layer 2. Aave has chosen to go on Polygon. And as we can see, switching over there, different returns, different and higher, and rewards in Matic's token. But Layer 2 is risky as it's unknown territory, so be careful. But now that you have lended to Aave, you are now able to use their function of borrowing. And as you can see with Aave, back on Layer 1, they are basically paying you to borrow Gemini based on the rewards given in SDK Aave. You pay a borrow rate of 3.61%, yet you are getting rewards of 5.54%. So based on your initial lent stable collateral, you can borrow a certain amount of that asset. You can then take the borrowed amount you got from Aave and unleash it into other platforms. Depends on the asset you borrow, but maybe go into Curve stablecoin pools, take it to Compound to lend and then borrow some more. Or take your staked Aave you're earning, turn it into Aave, and then the borrowed stablecoins, take those, put them into a DEX LP pool, which you can then take that LP pool token and put it in somewhere else to earn more rewards. The choices and options will change and evolve, and you need to be on top of the ball if you want the highest at all-time returns. I'm not going to go too deep into this episode because that is a whole nother video, but if you like this yield farming content, let me know down in the comments and maybe I'll do some more. So I'm using our stability in DeFi, 10% of my portfolio, earning some sweet yield returns, which just in case this is the top, a retouch of 60K and a major crash is coming, we now have 10% stable. That's better than 0, even though it's unlikely that happens. 60K is the top. The next level milestone I plan to cash out, just one more 10K move up to 70K. 10% of what we have left in the crypto portfolio. 90% left in our least like altcoins. The stable asset, shooting for DAI or USDC again, but we are open to others based on yield. Which we'll do the same dang thing, putting those stable assets to work in DeFi, earning yield and staying stable, which might suck if the markets keep going up, but what if they don't? At least you have de-risked yourself and have a good chunk, 19% of your portfolio earning yield and staying stable. 81% of the portfolio is left, and at 80K I'm going to once again take 10% of my least like altcoins and cast them out into similar stable assets. Take those stable assets and utilize them in DeFi to earn yield. This trend continues up to 90K, about 73% of my portfolio is left, taking 10% of that of my least like altcoins and turning it into stable assets to be used in DeFi. At 100K, I'd have about 65.5% of my portfolio left, and I'd like to take 10% of my least like altcoins again that get cashed out into the DeFi stable assets to earn DeFi yield. So at 100K, I would have over 40% of my portfolio cashed out, left with 59% still in the game. And this trend will continue all the way up to 150K at the 10K increments, 10% cashed out of what I have left. 110K, I'll have about 53% of my crypto portfolio left. 120K, I'll have about 48% of my portfolio left. 130K, I'll have about 43% left. 140K, about 38% left. And then at my projected peak, 150K, I will have cashed out 65% of my portfolio and have 35 still in the game, which will be mostly made up of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and some of my favorite altcoins. And right here is where I'm going to stop, as I want to replay my peak prediction. I'm sticking to the Chico guns. The top for this cycle will be between 100K to 200K by December 2021. I said I'm sticking to my guns, and I said it could be going to 200K. Shoot, there are even some analysts saying BTC could go to 300K this run. Well, if that's the case, at least 35% of my portfolio is still in the game. So my next cash out video, maybe in a month, maybe in 2, maybe when BTC is at 100K. Because the markets change, everything changes, and I need to reevaluate on a more consistent basis. Cheers, I'll see you next time.